Hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Octocast. I am once again joined by our friend Prim.
Yo, I am Prim. Hello.
Okay, that was better than the last two times. And our friend Grape.
Hi, I'm Grape. I've played the JP version of this game for about more than 2 years, and I have most of the characters we're about to discuss in this episode.
Hell yeah, wow. An actual intro.
All
Claps.
right, okay, all right, okay, all right.
All right,
Okay,
so,
fine. Let's try this again.
nope,
Let's try
nope,
this
nope,
again.
we're gonna let that hang. Every single episode, your intro is gonna progressively get better. They're gonna watch you grow over time.
God damn it.
Okay, so today's episode is going to be about upcoming banners, with a specific focus on MC, since that is coming the soonest announced, and MT being Memory Champions and Memory Travelers. We're going to explain all of the upcoming banner types, how they work, all of that kind of stuff. And then we're also going to talk about the value of paid rubies going forward, since that's going to change a little bit, on top of what your pull strategy should be going into this area that we're going to have towards the end of this year, where it's basically like really, really strong units back to back to back to back in some fashion. Even if that back to back has like a dud in between, they'll be really close together. There's a lot of units that you're going to want. And so how to plan out how to get that with best using your rubies. So that's what we're talking about today. We're going to hop into the first topic, the upcoming banners. So Prim, do you want to explain the different kind of banner types that are going to be joining the game?
Sure. Okay. I think there are a total of 6 different banner types in this game. They are as follows. So we've already seen 2 of them, right? So we've seen gem pool characters, and we've also seen we've seen 3. We've seen gem pool characters, collab characters, of which we had Bravely Default and Near,
Yep.
and we've also seen Sacred Banner characters. We've had, I believe, 4 of them so far, correct?
Yes. And we currently have one highlighting all 4 of their releases again right now.
Yep. And there are a couple of new ones that we have not seen yet, including what Dream just mentioned, which are Memory Travelers, Memory Champions, which are the primary villains in the story of COTC, and seasonal limited characters. These are also a limited type banner, which means that after these seasonal limited banners run in that corresponding season, whether it's summer or winter, you're unable to spook these characters in Gem Pool. Right? They're only restricted to their window of time.
Yeah, because we didn't have
And
enough limited types of banners.
right. Just to give you a rough idea, all these new banner types that we haven't had yet include units that are some of the best characters in the game.
Okay, so to get things started, our announced banner that we already have a timeline on is the Memory Champions. And there is a giant hype in the community about these characters coming out, obviously because they were the original villains in the story. People have an attachment to their favorite story. And at the time that they were announced we were going to get them, they were looking pretty good in terms of like what we had access to. But with Near coming out since then, with Memory Travelers on the horizon, the outlook on realistically if you should pull them has changed a little bit. So do you want to talk about that, Prim?
Yeah, sure. So there have been a total of 4 different memory champions so far released in JP. We're about to get 3 of them for our first year anniversary. And among these 3, we have the 3 master of all villains, not master of all, master of, X villains, right? We have Tytos, Herminia, and Auguste. And these are, in isolation, they're pretty strong characters, right? They have unique effects. They have some of the highest potencies, if not the highest potencies, for their respective damage type. And also, August in particular, he has a very, very powerful A4. And also just by himself a very, very unique kit. And that's why, a lot of people here on our Discord server and also on Reddit, on YouTube, have been very, very hyped up for all 3 of these characters, and in particular August. And the reason why we want to, juxtapose these characters with the upcoming MTs is that we want to show that some of these upcoming MTs actually have possibly way more appeal or value to a meta-focused player.
Yeah, because if I recall correctly, all 3 of our MCs that are coming up are like pretty selfish units. Like you build teams to support them, they don't so much support the team the way a Rinyuu or a Richard supports the whole team.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So what we'll find as we, dive into some of the later MT characters that have not been announced yet in EN is that even some of the strongest DPS characters among these MTs, memory traveler characters, also have extremely, extremely powerful support characteristics for your party. And that goes with their passives, their alts, their active skills. They're bringing a lot more to your party than just damage. Not only do they do that, but they also have among the highest damage in the game, and a lot more than these upcoming memory champion characters.
Grape, do you recall how the MC banner works?
Think the first run of the MC banner, which would be the trio of villains,
Yeah.
had all three of them in one single banner, and
Always
all
fun.
three of them, all three of them have rate up, but it's still a pretty bad chance if you're like
If you're just
trying
trying
to
to focus
snipe one
one.
specifically.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the easy analogy is it's the exact same kind of rate structure on this banner as Nier. And in this case, if you were trying to focus on August, it'd be exactly like, you hoping for A2 on Nier. It's that kind of
Yeah.
pain or elation, depending on your luck, but it will be very, very luck based.
Do you remember what the pities were? Are they just a flat 200 for all three of them?
I think it was 200.
Yeah, flat 200 for all of them. So it's really the exact same as Nier. The,
And
the
then
exact same structure.
paid step up as well, and then free regular pulls.
Yeah, paid step up, 33% chance of each on the final step.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the individual rates on every single non-guaranteed pull is adding up to 0.666666% on each character, adding up to 2% featured rate.
Is there any special gimmick to it, like how Sacred Blaze has like only 4 stars? Is there any other special thing about it?
Nope.
Yep.
Okay.
The other 2% are just gem pool. It's just flat gem pool.
Just for the far out future, there's only one other MC that eventually gets added to that, being our girl Tatty. How far apart was her release from the original 3? Was it like a whole year later?
It was like
Yeah, for JP, it was
half a
literally
year, I
their
think.
second. Yeah, it was no. I think for JP, wasn't it on your second enemy, or was that a rerun of Tatlock? Because I remember
It was a bit before the second Annie, so it's roughly half a.
She released before Pets did, right? Because her pet was out on release, or no?
Yeah, I think her pet was out on the second Annie, right?
Yeah, her pet was announced when pets were announced, so
Okay.
it's like right before second
Yeah.
Annie, but not
All
quite
I
on.
remember is that if you because I logged into JP and checked the banners, and when second Annie was still active for about a week, Tatlock's banner was still active.
And for her banner, is she just solo or is she split among the 4?
She is solo.
She's solo, yeah. So
Okay.
her banner's just way better.
And
She's
she
the
is
best.
the best MC.
By far, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So realistically, like, unless you're real down bad for the villains, I think my suggestion would just be, and what I'm gonna do personally is just I'm not gonna pull on the MC banner too seriously. I might like try to go for an August just out of the YOLO, just to have him because I like his aesthetic and I just love him as a character. But I think that if you're actually trying to hoard your gems and trying to be as meta as possible, just full skipping MC until Tats MC banner is the way to go.
Yeah, I love August too, and I'm really, really tempted to pull on the banner, but I just feel like, man, if I just YOLO pull and I don't get him, I'm gonna be encouraged to pull all the way to pity.
You think it's
It's just gonna
quite
happen.
a terrible idea to put on this banner, really, because like there's no step up whatsoever, and then
Not only that, right?
Are,
Not only that, later on JP got reruns of these villain banners and they were separated, right?
yeah.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
really changes.
So
Yeah.
like if you wanted to snipe them, wait for the actual rerun.
And I
or
assume they
if-
can be all spooked out of Tatty's banner, right?
I think so. Yes. Let me just check that.
But they didn't have boosted rates, right? They were just like flat rates, kind of like MTs.
Oh, they were just like as if they were in part of the general pool.
Yeah, which is like if
Okay.
that were the case, then it's just you assume that they're not there because you're not going to spook them.
Okay, while he's looking for that, let's talk about the individual characters, since I think a lot of people are excited for them, and we kind of just came in here with yeah, we're skipping them. So the reason why we're skipping them, so let's go over them individually. Tytos, from what I know, is supposed to be a warrior tank, kind of in the vein that Adia currently can be used in. And that meta has kind of already come and gone, as far as I know. Is there any other upcoming stuff where a warrior tank would be like needed?
Well, it's not even just that. We're gonna get Sarah Nova for free. And
True, which
not only
would just
yeah,
replace him, right?
not only are we getting Sarah Nova for free, we're getting him and his A4 for free on day one, if you have the resources to grind out the board on day one.
Yeah.
And just to give you an idea of how good Serenoa is, she's actually just a stronger DPS than Tytos. Because Serenoa has a buff skill that he can use right before the nuking phase that makes his next action kind of like Divine Feed. He gets to repeat it. So he gets to do, whatever your cap is times 2.
I mean, the biggest issue of using Tytos as a warrior tank is he doesn't have a taunt. So.
Oh wait, does he actually not? I know he has the counter and the evade. He doesn't have a taunt. Okay,
yeah,
so you would need a taunter.
Yeah, you need someone to taunt onto him. He is tanky, like he is able to tank, but it's just not.
Yeah.
He's not a very self-sufficient one. Whereas once we get Serenoa, not only does he have a taunt, his A4 also taunts enemies onto him for 3 turns while giving him a 15% passive defense up from the start of battle. Once he's like, just to give you an idea. Serenoa is a very, very good unit, and he's completely free along with A4. So even if you don't have a character like Gilderoy built up, just as a generic tank, Serenoa will be really good.
Okay, so that's Tytos, and then on to the fan favorite, obviously, Auguste. What do you think that Auguste brings to the table that like eventually gets like power crept or not as strong like later down the line?
So I would say that Auguste doesn't get power crept that quickly. Like his kit is really, really unique, right? You can actually in a speed run set up someone to die on turn 1. You can use something like 2B's 3x AoE that lowers her HP down to 1, right? And then she'll die to like an enemy tickle, and all of a sudden he'll be state of rage. And while he's in passionate rage for 4 turns, he's gonna have self 30% attack and magic up. His 3-star passive is self 20% dagger and tome damage up, and you're gonna be able to give him in the future, in JP, you're gonna be able to give him like a 30% dark rune if you want him to do dark damage. So he's gonna be able to do quite a lot of dagger damage, quite a lot of dark damage for a good amount of time, right? And not only that, his skills also have a secondary effect while in passionate rage. So for example, his dagger nuke gets guaranteed crit and restores 3 BP while applying 10% dagger down. So, for now, he's going to be your only active dagger defense down unit, dagger res down unit. His dark AoE, instead of 2 hits, becomes 4 hits. And mind you, this is 4 hits at a very high potency, right? Even at 0 PP,
yeah, and in AoE.
And in AoE, yeah. Even at 0 PP, it's 95 potency per hit. 4 by 95 at 0 PP. So you can think about how much that scales. And his tome is a guaranteed crit and also restores 3 BP, kind of like his dagger. And exactly just like his dagger, it also gives tome res down. Just in case you want to have fun bonking people in the face, he's gonna be really good at that.
If I recall correctly, I remember back when people were talking about Nier before we had it. It was that like 9S was basically only used in JP to set up Auguste. What makes 9S like specifically good at that?
I think 9S also has like like bring himself down to 1 HP skill. Yeah, so limit 1 times per battle, 3x fire AoE, always reduces shield points, reduce own HP to 1. So that would be the skill that.
Okay. Was the difference between him and the other? Because basically all of them have that. Was it just that he was a free unit, so he could be like guaranteed in every roster to be able to proc it?
Yeah, exactly. So 2B has the exact same skill, but not everyone has 2B, whereas everyone has 9S as long as they play during Nier.
Yeah.
So you can do the same thing with 2B as you can with 9. It doesn't matter which one you use. I guess 2B is a little bit easier to use sometimes, maybe because she's easier to make fast, right? But I mean, since the only thing you're doing with them is shaving down 3 shields AoE, then you can probably afford to give Nines some speed accessories or something like that just to get him to do that quickly, so that he can do it before your other characters move or and get the enemy to kill him. Because you don't want the enemy to hit hit someone else or whatever, or hit your front line in case you're doing a buff on the same turn, right? A lot of the time we're doing like a buff on on the unit that's row partners with 2B or 9S, and then swapping them to the front on turn 1, right? You see what I'm saying? So that's a speed adjustment issue.
So Auguste isn't going to get power crept in that way. For his dagger side, which I would argue is like pretty up there in terms of our current daggers, he's going to be ramming wall on day 1 with guaranteed crit, dagger down.
Yeah. He definitely is going to be power crept out of our dagger rosters, but that's not going to happen until Bargelo and Sonia come out, right? Because Bargelo and Sonia both have dagger as down. They both have strong multi hits and nukes.
So let's say you already have A2, Therian, and Falco.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want Auguste if you already have those 3? At least in a dagger comp, like, would you bring him as a 4th, or would you just buff the shit out of those 3 with like a Lynette Alphen as your 4th row?
That's a good question. It depends
I think
go ahead.
You have those 3, you probably want Auguste even more.
Oh,
yeah,
because that's how you can make the most out of the dagger rest down. Whereas if you only have Auguste as a so good thief, then really doesn't matter because you can't really capitalize it on it that much.
Yep. And also, do remember that he does have an ult that is multi-hit. He has a 5x dagger single target.
Oh, he does. Yeah, because I was gonna say his 4 times multi-hit that isn't his ulti is really, really low power.
It's low power, but it's pretty good for shield shaping for now.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
And in terms of dark, I think he's just going to become our strongest dark attacker for a minute.
As long as Nina Lana doesn't come out before him, because she's going to be stronger than him, I guess, overall. But,
is she a unit that we've already skipped in JP's timeline? We expect her soon?
I believe so, actually. Let me check real quick. Actually, yep. We would have expected to have gotten her maybe fairly recently, maybe like within Ian's timeline, maybe like a month or so ago.
Oh, yeah, she would have been the next regular release after Mulu.
Yeah, who knows? We might get her in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Yeah, we might get her before the MCs.
Yeah, I think there's a very, very good chance that she'll show up before then. I mean, it's not like that means that August wouldn't be good, right? Because then
because we just don't have a lot of good dark right now.
Yeah, but it also depends on whether or not you're gonna pull for Xenia. I mean, if you just like August more, you like August more, but Xenia is also gonna be our third really strong dark DPS, right? So by that point, we're gonna have PrimROse, Nidalana, and Xenia, and August, right? So these 4 characters.
Yeah, I looked at some very old thoughts, and so first of all, Padlock did come out just 2 weeks before 2nd anniversary.
Okay.
And the second thing is none of the other MCs are in the banner.
Right.
Oh, okay. So they get their individual reruns, but they're not a part of Tatty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Tatty rerun has the MC trio, but that's the rerun.
But okay. what were their rates on the rerun for Teddy? Because I remember polling on that banner, because I just polled on that banner. And I don't remember what the rates are.
Yeah, did you spook any of the other MCs while doing that?
No. That was a horrible poll session for me. All I got was like a Lionel. I finally hit. I spooked a Lionel, and I got Tatlock on my like 80th poll or something. 8th multi.
Wow, looking at the hunters as I'm going to go look at Herminia, there's not very many hunters that we don't have.
Yeah, we have pretty much all of them except for
we're pretty caught up on that.
Yeah, we were super caught up. We're only missing EX Tressa and EX Loomis outside of Herminia.
And those aren't particularly good anyway, so
yeah. Well, I would say EX Loomis is a whole lot better than Herminia.
So then on to Herminia. What does she bring to the game that's new or super strong or anything like that?
Well, okay. She's very, very good at breaking. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 different kinds of 4 hits.
Yep. And she also has, if any of our viewers have Ludai, she has this Sky Spear skill.
Version.
Yeah, this is the bow version of that. And it might even be stronger, or is it the same potency? Let me check.
180.
I think the other one's also 180, right?
Yeah, I believe they're the same. I believe they're the same SP
Yeah.
cost too.
So she's pretty good at that. But here's the thing, right? Hunters and bow DPS as a whole is probably our strongest shield breaking class overall. So it's not like we really, really need extra shield breaking. We have all these units that have like 5 hits, 4 hits, 3 hits, etc. Like 3 hits is like the bare minimum. Everyone has 3 hits or better.
Yeah.
And in the future, EX Loomis is gonna have like 6 hits on her single target and 5 hits on her AoE. So it's like, do you really need Herminia to help you shave that one shield? Like, and also, if you think about it, the primary benefit of having this buff break for you is that you're able to get more damage in if the next hit you're doing is a single hit skill, right? Because if it was a single hit skill that you're breaking with instead, you'd be having that damage of your nuke. Whereas, if you're breaking with multi-hit anyways, you're not losing out on anything at all. Like let's say, for example, you're breaking with, Zanta's 5 hit or Scarecrow's 4 hit. You're losing half damage on your first hit, essentially if it was just one shield left. So and if it weren't, then that sky arrow thing that Herminia has, whatever that skill is called, would not be the one breaking anyways, because it's only a single hit per turn. So when you think about it that way, how necessary is it? Really, probably not that much.
It seems
I
like
will
her
say,
gimmick is bleeding. Does she
yeah,
enable anyone besides Jill with that?
not really, right? I mean,
Not
that
really.
would be the big synergy combo that we have between Jomila and Herminia. But again, like their skills. Their nukes are all one-hit nukes anyways. So, oh wow, they get 1.2 times potency. Well, now we already have both Chloe and Kyrgyz. We're capping Bo-Res down, right? We're getting all these OP fortune weapons coming up soon. And outside of that, in Limbo, we're gonna get, very OP Limbo weapons. We're gonna be able to hit, like a cap raised cap, right? We're gonna be able to hit like 150K or whatever pretty easily as well. So I don't really see the real benefit of their kits, and especially of their nukes being, 1.2 times power if the target is bleeding. Like, who cares? I really just don't see the appeal of it. Maybe Grape can,
Like, to be honest, don't rate her that highly because, like, I've not had her for a year since her release, I think, and then I didn't really feel it. So, especially after the characters we're gonna discuss later, I don't think Bo is like in that good a spot.
Yeah, it's
Speaking of
really
that,
not.
is Auguste and Herminia have like the secondary of Auguste hitting Tome and Herminia being able to hit Fan. Do either of those become relevant at any point? Now that we're getting soul weapons, like you can technically make like a physical Fan team. But does that ever, like, would you ever actually bring a physical Fan team over whatever the other weakness to the target would be?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a
Okay.
fan, if you're a fan of fans, right?
So basically, just if you
Well,
were
I mean,
trying to force it.
There
memes
is a fight that
aside,
has. There's a fan in J. There is a arena fight in JP that is AOE fan week, right? And that would be Hammy. But it's not like Herminia is a standout character in that fight because we're gonna get actual dancers that are very, very OP, including, a character we already mentioned, Tatlock. TT would also be really good. EX Fior. Um, Herminia would not be, a standout for using her fan in that case.
I
What were you gonna
think
say, Grape?
like yeah, for any sort of damage type to matter, like be competitive, you need at least 4 DPS characters that matter. And for tome damage, that isn't the case. For fan damage, we're getting there, but on the other hand, the problem is Herminia isn't one of those that's gonna fit in there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It's not even close,
So
right?
like when you look at like Herminia and Auguste, you go like, ooh, tome damage and fan damage. That's rare. But rare doesn't actually mean it's good. It just means that there's less units that synergize with them, so you're gonna have a rough time using them.
Yeah, I think during the opening of the game, people looked at it as like, I really want like a lot of everything. I want to be able to cover every single weakness. I want to be able to bring a team for fan. I want to be able to bring a team for bow, a team for sword. But I think as we get further and further into where JP is right now, it becomes like you're just bringing the best weakness and you're focusing only on that. You're not trying to bring like a fan user, a tome user, and a spear user if those are the three weaknesses. You're picking your strongest one for your roster, which would probably be spear in that case, and you're just running it down spear.
Yep. And you also have to think about it statistically, right? So the reason why people thought they might have wanted coverage is for scenarios like, for example, the level 100 NPCs, where they only have two weaknesses, one physical and one elemental, right? But this is actually really not the norm. In reality, in most cases, most endgame enemies, including EX free fight enemies of story bosses, they're going to have 4 or 5 or 6 weaknesses, right? Just thinking purely statistically, it's almost impossible for the game designer to design a fight where an enemy has 4 or 5 different weaknesses, and you'd want to focus on something like tome or fan.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, later on we do have a fan fight, and the reason why is because I think fan was the only one weakness that all 3 targets are weak to, right? It's not even just because fan becomes stellar. It's because Hammy and her ads are all weak to fan, and that's the only weakness where that is the case.
Yep.
Okay, I feel like we covered MCs pretty well. Do you want to jump into memory travelers, specifically starting with how their banners work?
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and do that, Grape?
Basically, memory travelers is a type of banner where you can pull characters from the actual story, so not random characters that never show up in the story. And the main thing about it is that, at least in JP, actually, all of the things I'm going to say are based on what's happened in JP.
Yeah.
So
things could change
with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
We don't expect it to because there's no good reason to. But anyways, so the first memory traveler that showed up for JP was Richard, and then at that time you can pity him for 150 pools. And then every other memory traveler release, you will get the previous memory travelers in the pity, but you would have to pity them for 200 pools worth of rubies. So, for example, Arane released after Richard, and in that banner, you could pity Richard for 200 rubies.
And you could pity
200 pools.
200 fragments, and then you could pity her on her own banner for 150.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep.
Okay.
And that goes on and on for every new memory traveler banner.
And
what's
for each of their releases, they always release in the paid step up free regular banner structure, right?
Yep. So what I'm about to get into is actually the paid step up part. 1 second.
Right. And before you get into that, we can just briefly mention all of these single featured MT banners, they have a featured rate of 1.2%, and the previous MT characters that have released before them are going to be in the pool. However, unlike Sacred Banner characters and Sacred Banners in general, they do not have a rate up beyond the rate of a gem pool character.
Yeah, so they're added to the gen pool for that banner type.
Yeah, which is why, because they don't have a rate up at all, we do not recommend people to, you know, base their decisions on hoping to spook these MTs, at least not for a while, you know, because as a percentage of the total pool, they're going to be, you know, you're going to start at like, you know, 1 out of, you know, 50 something, 2 out of 50 something, right? You get the idea. Your chances of spooking an MT for a long time are going to be fairly low.
Yep, right. Should I get into the paid
tell
banner?
us about the paid banner.
Yeah, so besides the normal frags you get from pooling, so like one frag per character pool, right, on the usual pity system.
Yeah.
You also get paid fragments that last forever, unlike the usual pity fragments that expire after the banner, right? So like you can't carry them over. This one actually carries over, and you can pity any memory traveler instantly on release with 200 of these paid fragments. So the price of the paid fragment. So let's take a look at a normal memory traveler banner. So the step 1 costs 200 paid rubies. Step 2 costs 250 paid rubies. And step 3 to 5 all cost 300 paid rubies. The first step lands you 5 paid fragments. The second step lands you 10 paid fragments. The third step lands you 15. And the fourth step lands you 20. The fifth step does not give you any because it's the step where you get a guaranteed 5-star character.
Yeah.
So if you're pulling 5 steps, so let's say you go 1 lap, that would land you 50 paid fragments. Which
50 paid and 50 free, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So the 50 free you can use in combination with the fragments you get from your free rubies if you chose to spend free rubies. Those will expire with the banner as usual, but the paid fragments you keep forever. There's no time limit to it, and it's used in an exchange where, well, there's 2 uses. One is horrible. You can exchange 50 fragments for, I believe, 200 gold guide stones of any MT, which sounds horrible, and it's horrible. The realistic use for heavier spenders, I suppose, would be saving up 200 fragments, and then you can pity any memory traveler of your choice, regardless of if there's a memory traveler banner being on at the time or not. You can just pull the trigger anytime.
Yeah, so one example of how you would do this is, say, for example, you did 4 paid laps before Rinyuu was released in EN, depending on the order, that could or could not be the case, right? That means that once Rinyuu's banner comes online, you can use your 200 paid fragments and instantly spook her without pulling on her banner at all. And obviously this is a lot of benefits because you're not wasting any frags, right? Because all you want is 1 copy of Rinyuu in the first place. So say, for example, you did pull on Rinyuu's banner and you got her on the 80th pull, right? You probably wouldn't want to continue pulling because you don't care about her dupes, and all those frags would be wasted if they were free banner pulls. And if they were paid banner pulls, you're still wasting the free fragment part of it.
Yeah. And so even on release, the paids are always 200 fragments.
Yes.
It's never 150. Okay.
Yep. Nope, never.
In addition, we should probably make note that we've had a couple of different kinds of MT banner types so far. We've had the single featured MT banner, such as Richard or Krauser in JP. We've also had the dual SEPA banner that only happened once, and that was with Bargelo and Sonia, where they shared the same banner and shared the same pity exchange and the free pity exchange. And we've also had dual banner releases where 2 single banners released at the same time, like for example was the case with Elrica and Arani X, and then again with Sazantos and Signa. However, they share the same pity exchange, which is very, very valuable because
the same free fragment exchange.
Yeah,
even though they're different banners.
Yep, and that means that say you wanted to get at least 1 copy of each. Well, as soon as you hit 1 copy of one of them, you're guaranteed to get a copy of the other once you hit the pity, right? Regardless of which of the 2 banners you keep pulling on. So let's say one of the characters is a character you want more dupes on, you can just keep pulling on that banner. And once you hit 150, you can just pity the other one, right? And you'll get your first copy. And you can do that, for example, with the Sazantos and Signa banner. You do want Signa 2 copies probably, and then you might want 2 copies for Sazantos as well, and you can just pull accordingly based on that.
Right. Speaking of the Bargello Sonia special banner, one thing of note is that you cannot spark any previous MTs on that banner.
Yeah, that's the first one that happened on, right?
Yep.
Yep, it's the first and last time as well, right? We haven't had that happen again since.
Last so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching Smoke pull on that banner when he started JP, and then trying to spark Rinyuu out of it, not realizing that there was no Rinyuu to spark.
Well, I mean, at least that's not the end of the world. Both those characters are stellar characters, and and especially Bargello really enjoys his awakenings, so it's no big deal.
So on the note, just continuing the thought of the paid banners, so the value of using paid rubies on the MT banners vastly outweighs the value of using paid rubies anywhere else in the game from that point forward, right?
Basically, besides a couple of other cases, and those would be, for example, some of the collab banners, especially the latest one in JP. Essentially, the highest value way that you can spend your paid rubies would be on a dual banner split, exactly like Bargello Sonia, where both characters are extremely powerful characters. And on your final slot of your paid step-up round, it would be a 50-50 between those two featured characters, instead of 50% featured and 50% off banner, right? You can think about that as, wow, so much more
true.
value.
It's 100% chance to be one of them.
Yes, it's 100% chance for you to nut. You're gonna feel good about that, and then that's why I keep saying, for light spenders or just for spenders in general, if you're ever gonna spend $120, Bargello Sonia is probably one of the best ways for you to do that. And it's going to be the same thing for ODO and ODOS, even though I would argue that ODOS is maybe not even as good as Sonia, but he's still a stellar character, obviously, and ODO is one of the best characters in the game. And this is another instance of where the paid banner would be extremely high value.
What do you think of the anniversary banners?
Oh, right. Yeah, and we can talk about those as well. This is another banner type, but it's not a banner type associated with a character type. It is actually a paid pity any Sacred Banner, Memory Traveler, or Gem Pool character. So it does not include Seasonal Limited, it does not include Memory Champions, and it does not include collab characters. But spending 1,200 paid rubies would let you pity one copy of any character. And this is not a dupe stone, this is the character. So if you don't have that character, you can use this banner if we do get the equivalent banner in EN to pick up that character that you missed.
Do you think that we're going to be getting that when they've already announced MC as our anniversary special?
I don't think we're going to be getting that, and even if we did, it wouldn't be very high value for now. But I do believe that we are going to get something like this for our second anniversary, and we might even get it for our 1.5 year. Yeah. I think we're almost guaranteed to get it on our second. I would say that. I would bank on it. Even though the cost might be a little bit different, I think it'll probably be still around 1,200 paid rupees for left.
Yeah, I don't think there's a conflict between MC and the anniversary banner, because like what we've gotten before, we've also gotten like the anniversary banner alongside like other anniversary character banners. So like it's not necessarily one or the other.
Was it ever with releases or was it with reruns?
Releases actually.
Oh, okay.
Because like there's a second Annie banner, and then Bargello is second Annie character. So there you go. But you can't actually get Bargello on that banner, so it's like
right. You get all the characters before Bargello and Sonia.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you remember? Yeah, go ahead.
I think Leon was quite close to that second Annie banner as well, so we also didn't get Leon in that exchange, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, that's really good to know. My question to you is, do you remember what JP got on your first anniversary, right? In terms of, did you get some rerun banners, some weird OG8 banners? What kind of stuff did you guys get?
We got the cotc 8 selector.
Yep.
Which, well, explains itself, I suppose. You can, if you don't have Viola, pick up Viola. If you don't have Lynette, Lynette,
That also
that kind of
released
stuff.
with Awakenings in the first place for you guys, right? So that was like more so a reason to start getting the original 8 again.
I think Awakenings actually released for JP along with Yanlong. That was like literally came with Yanlong's release.
Oh, I thought it was first anniversary. Is it just around the same time?
That's around the same time because like
Okay.
right after Yanlong was Ulbrich and Ophelia, which was our first anniversary characters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just a quick note, right? If I were a free-to-play player, you know, a relatively new one at that, if I don't have Lynette's dupe, like your first Lynette dupe, I would prioritize that even over your first copy of Viola. Like I would definitely prioritize having Lynette and her alt level 10 first.
Because there's a lot of ways to get Viola out of different characters on your team now. Whereas there's not a way to get a Lynette.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah.
Because Lynette just compresses all those things, right? Compresses the passive, attack and magic up, active and ult, all in one character. And she can extend all your backpacks. She just does way too much. Whereas Viola, like you said, she's really good for single target scenarios. But even in single target scenarios, depending on your comp, there's ways for you to get the exact same combination of debuffs while attacking.
Yeah, like for example, in Warrior right now, you can shave shields and give the 20% or the 30% defense down without having to use anything but warriors to do it.
Yeah, and it's even easier on dagger comps because thieves are all just masters of debuffing anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get away without Viola generally, and well, I mean, it's not like she's bad, but like if you compare how hard it is to replicate the effects of, let's say, U10 Lynette versus Viola, I think it's harder to replicate the effects of U10 Lynette.
Okay, so we recommended people to basically skip the first round of MCs. What are the first upcoming MTs that you think people should be spending those rubies on instead? So I think Richard is the big one. It was the first one that released in MTs for JP. And he is one of our first characters that really... I think Joshua was our first active sword damage up. And then A2 was our first, like, that typing active up for herself. So both of those characters are selfish in that they only give it to themselves. But Richard is our first active damage up character that gives it to everybody in the front row.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing about Richard is that there's been a little bit of discourse among the JP community on our server right now over, you know, how good is he now, you know, in current JP's metagame after this long? Because obviously he was the first MT release and it's been well over a year now, right? It's been a year and 4 months since his release.
Yeah, February 2022.
And the funny thing is, you know, as much as they try to replace Richard in their rosters, most of the time he still ends up on the roster.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason why is because, you know, we look at his kit, right? It's like, okay, well, we have ODOO now, and he gives 20% all damage up, which includes sword, right? And you compare that with someone like, you know, Elrica's sword, you know, all damage up, which is 10%. No, now you're capped, and you get crit, right? Oh, why do you need Richard? Richard's call to fame is his active damage up, right? Oh, you know, we have powerful A4 accessories, and we have other ways of getting passive attack up for our 1 main or 2 main nukers. Why do we need Richard's full front row 15% attack up? Oh, we have sword A4s and we have free 4-star A4s. Why do we need Richard's 15% sword damage up passive, right? Oh, we have Signa. She gives 15% all res down. Why do we need Richard's 15% sword defense down? We also have a character like Sarasa, right? And then the more you talk about this, the more ridiculous it feels in your head. You're like, wait a second. So we have all these characters that do all these things, but Richard does all these things.
Does all of them, yeah.
In the same character, and none of them have his alt level 10 or alt level 9 even. Level 9 gives 10% ultimate category sword damage up, and his level 10 gives 15% to sword and spear, right? And not to mention, all buffs and debuffs cast by Richard gets +1 turn duration. So that means you can ult before your 2 break turns, and you will get that ultimate category 10 or 15% sword or spear damage up for the duration of your breaks, right? And not only that, obviously, he has high value in a spear comp, giving that 20% spear damage up. Not only that, he also compresses attack up into that same buff. it's a full front row 20% attack sword spear damage up, right? So along with the net, it will cap, right? And not only is he inflicting sword damage, sword defense down, sure, it's a 15% sword defense down, and it's only for a low chance, right? Let's say 25% chance per hit. However, he's shaving 4 shields while he's doing it as well. So like his kit is highly compressed, it's very high value, and it's very high turn economy. And his passives allow him to be a powerful roster beneficiary. No, sorry, benefactor, right? He's a benefactor of a lot of rosters that don't even feature sword DPS, right? Because he's going to be able to be there to give you his 15% passive attack up for your full front row regardless, right? And also, you can't really just think of, oh, I can get 30% capped sword damage up anyways, sword damage passive up anyways. Because I'll look at my cool A4s. It doesn't really work that way because a lot of the time, him giving you that 15% passive sword damage up frees up a slot for you to use a accessory that's not only a stat stick. That could be, a dodge stick, right? It could be something else that gives you a unique effect that you need in order to do a particular kind of clear, right? And that's completely free. It's a completely passive way for you to do that.
Okay, and then another unit that everyone looks towards is, of course, our girl Rinyuu. Can you explain a little bit of the strengths of Rinyuu?
I think Grape can probably do that better than I can. He's been using Rinyuu for a long time, right?
Yeah, sure. So you know how you have to manage your and all that shit to get regen on the people you need?
Yeah.
She just regens everyone, all 8 people, forever. While also providing 15% defense up, both this and Ellie, and status ailments prevention. Which 2 of them? Let me just check real quick.
Maybe the paralysis and sleep. Paralysis and sleep is on the defensive one, and I believe silence and fear are on the offensive warfare.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. Paralysis and sleep. So she does all that permanently. You don't have. She just spends one action in the beginning of the fight to activate this constant regen mode, and then she never has to do anything else in the whole entire fight to keep this running.
Yeah, basically you use the skill, it puts her into a channeling state, and then you bring the character behind her forward, and she's still channeling from the back row, giving you either that defense buff up and regen every single turn, or attack and magic up, all damage up every single turn.
Yeah, and in particular, her offensive warfare is very unique in that it's all damage up. You get a effect up node at level 100 that increases the damage up effect from 10% to 15%, and this is good because it'll combine with one of the other MTs or other characters that have an active damage up, either all damage up like Elrica or ODOO, or specific damage up, for example, with Richard or Solon, right? It's also particular to note that in cases where you can survive using a combination of dodge and regular active regen, like say for example from the likes of PrimROse EX, then you would be able to put her on this warbearer duty and get a lot more offense out of it. Or in cases where you have trouble surviving, then you would be able to use her defensive prayer to help your bulk.
I will say that her regen sometimes does not heal you to full. But it's very rare because usually depending on the character max HP, she does around mid 2000s to mid 3000s. And that's usually enough of regen for capping health. But sometimes when you are at 100 health, it might not heal you back to full because the potency there is not that strong. The regen is 110 potency.
Yeah, and another reason why is because healing skills they don't proc off of weapon grade because your grade adjustment is part of a damage formula instead of a healing formula. It's your healing's based more on your raw stats, and in order for Rinyuu to continue her channeling effect rather indefinitely, her fortune weapon that you would use in Overworld, that is going to be focused on a combination between speed and granting her more SP. So giving her a bigger SP pool means that you can channel in indefinitely, because in the back row you're also
Gaining
recovering
SP.
SP,
Yeah.
gaining SP every turn. And the bigger your pool is, the greater
Mm,
10% of the SP pool is relative to the cost of the skill, making it infinite.
What does the
The,
boost on her like channeling change?
it reduces the per turn SP consumption.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So
I
I
thought they were just
actually got the
listed
game
backwards. That
now.
makes way more sense.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you have to realize that, so this is really not that hard to achieve. Like 20
You
SP
don't
or 40
need,
SP.
yeah,
The
you don't
bigger
need a
thing is,
fortune weapon.
yeah, the bigger thing is you want speed for speed clears, because for I mean, even if it's defensive, right? Whether it's offensive or defensive. For offensive, obviously it's clear. As the sooner you get that offense up, the sooner you can benefit from it. For defense as well, if the enemy has a very strong turn one action, then getting that 15% active defense and magic defense up could help you as well.
For the SP part, like think about this, because like you regen 10% of SP every turn, right? When you're in the
Yep.
back row, and she's probably always in the back row,
Yeah.
except the turn when you
And her
actually
SP
cast.
pool is 485, so it's fairly high
Yeah,
already.
so like War Prayer at max boost, which you're always going to max boost anyways, costs 40 SP per turn. So realistically, you don't need to do anything to
Right, yeah.
make it
As long as
go
she's level
indefinite.
100.
Yeah, I was actually I had a little mental hiccup there, because I was really thinking about Iran EX. That's the one where it costs a lot more without an SP
Yeah, that's
command, right?
100 per turn.
Yeah, it's 100 per turn flat. Yeah, so that's why you want to get her SP pool to over 1000.
Jesus.
Rinyuu wise, I think some people might be thinking about, how is the person in front going to manage the SP? Because like if Rinyuu's always in the back, that means her role partner is not getting any SP regen. Here's where her passive comes in, and well, what does it do? Let's see. It heals 5% of the front row, the row partner's SP every
Yeah.
turn, just by existing. And then she also reduces everyone in the front's SP cost by 10%.
Yeah, so they're going to be using less SP, and they're gaining half of what they would in the back row anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So in essence, it's actually even better than if that character could occasionally switch to the back row, because it's just continuous.
Yeah, it's as if
Right.
they spent half their time in the back row without having to.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that with 4-star A4s coming, hopefully soon TM in EN,
Yeah.
you can give up to 20 SP regen on top of whatever the hell we already have with Rinyuu, just by slapping 2 accessories on Rinyuu that will give 20 SP regen to the her role partner on top of the 5%.
Okay, so on to the next one. We've kind of covered Bargello in the previous podcasts. I think in both of them, that he really brings damage cap or over damage cap to a lot of different teams, including himself. And so obviously he's super strong. We've talked about him in the previous podcast. But what we haven't talked a lot about Sonia, which is his banner partner, who is also really good. So could you talk about a little bit about the strengths of Sonia?
Yeah, sure. So right off the bat, she has a double cast passive. It activates when she comes from the back row. So what this immediately means is you can't have a double cast 2 turns in a row, which has obvious issues if you're thinking
You're
of
breaking back to
maximizing.
back.
Yeah, but the thing is, this double cast condition is quite easy to achieve, because like unlike Divine Feat where you have to spend 3 BP, she just does it all the time.
Yeah, it's also not RNG
then,
like Joshua.
Yeah, and then when you look at the kit, you see why it's extremely good. So some of the highlights of the kit, is a 2-hit AoE wind that turns to 3-hit AoE wind that shields
that shield
that
cracks.
shaves shields.
Yeah.
Yep. So at max boost, that's a 6-hit AoE that cracks shields, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
putting all those bow users to shame.
Let's just make a quick note. Skills that cost 3 BP, you can do every other turn when you have Arani X. Just think about that, right? Because when you have +1 BP regen, you spend 3 BP, right? You're gonna get 1 on that turn. You go to the back row, you're gonna get 2. And then on the third turn, another 3 BP, so that's another 6x AoE shield crack if you want, every other turn. And that means that, whoever you have row partners with her, you just have to have it be someone who has a useful action in between her turns. And that's not very hard to achieve.
Indeed. More than that, she has a 3-hit random target dagger that also pierces wind weakness.
And it becomes a 4.
That means, and if you boost it to max, it becomes a 4-hit, so potentially 8-hit random target, which just means 8-hit single target if you're doing single target.
Yep.
The potency is nothing much to write home about, but it's really a shield cracking tool. It's not really something you hit nuke with. And she does have a nuke, which is a 230 potency at base dagger attack that pierces wind and gives 3 turns of 10% dagger rest down. So when you double cast it, obviously it's pretty powerful. I think it's 900 total potency, I believe.
Yeah, so that would give you 6 turns of dagger res down at level 100 with the effect up. That gives +1 turn duration.
And then 6 turns of dagger res down, which is quite a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Without any extenders. If you put a debuff turn extender on her, it's just 8 turns just doing that.
Which is, it's really not necessary because you're going to need to combine her dagger res down with someone else's anyways. So, yeah.
And then she also has a 5-hit for her ulti that gives another 10% down, right?
Yeah, ultimate category, which is
out. Yeah.
Yep.
She also has.
I'm just saying, like, look, if you're a spender, you gotta wail on this. Come on, like, look at both Bartolo and Sonia. They have great ultis. They have great A4s. Come on, you just gotta go for it.
Yeah, it's one of the first times where like you just never lose getting the right up on a banner.
You just can't, you can't lose. You can't pull too many of one character. You can't be sad. You can only be happy. Well, unless you just don't hit. Well, you're not gonna hit if you don't gamble. Come on.
True.
You gotta go.
Abraham Lincoln once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
Exactly.
Who has like anti-attack, which we all know what anti-attack, right? Then basically the Viola anti-attack, and a unique but rarely used skill which restores SP, and if the target is a thief, it gives 2 turns of guaranteed crit, so that can go up to 4 if you double cast. It's unfortunately not extendable by boost. So
I didn't even think about double casting that.
Yeah, it's not really used too much anyways because of how short it lasts. But
also just how strong she is in general.
Sort of viable.
Well, I mean, if you double cast it, it'll still give you 4 turns, right? Because it'll be double cast. Not saying that's a good good use of your your BP.
Action.
That's like
your action,
That's an inefficient stall turn, but god damn, you're gonna hit hard when you go for that break.
Yeah, I can see it being useful setups, but realistically, you're just going to use the shield cracks and the nuke. That's about it. But from what I've said, I think it's pretty good. You can justify pulling on that banner even without Bargello, and then you see Bargello, and then okay, I'm pulling on this banner.
So I mean, TLDR, she has alt dagger res down that doubles as a nuke and also has many hits. She can combine with characters like Bargello, Auguste, Sarissa, to cap active dagger res down. And primarily she's known as an overall great support and utility unit for her ability to shave the 6 shields AoE every other turn. That's extremely powerful, regardless of whether the enemy is going to be weak to dagger or not. You can bring her into your comp.
Okay. Yep. And then something we talked a little bit about before we started recording was when we think these units are actually going to start coming out. Because I think most of us in here assumed that they would already be out by now, but they haven't been. They've just kind of been throwing us the general units that we've been missing. And so I'm kind of under the impression now that we're just going to keep getting thrown general units until anniversary.
I feel like you can't really sell, from what I see in JP, like the general pool units you're expecting now, and then if they pull out Richard banner now, they're gonna see such a huge discrepancy in the power level. It's like not even funny. I don't think they're ever gonna sell those general pool units ever.
Yeah, and let's just remind the audience who those characters are. So we're missing characters like Ukes, Cecily.
Ukes is actually after MT, so
sure, yeah, but he's also just not very spectacular.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, in EM we also skipped some though. We skipped some not so spectacular characters. For example, Cecily's pretty good, but comparing
her
to
time
Richard,
to shine has definitely passed.
Has already passed. So we already think that she will probably need a buff, or she's justified for getting a buff if Square Enix wants people to pull on her outside of her being Smoke's body pillow.
True.
Right.
But and then we also have who else? Who else do we even have? Prom. Yep, Prom, Nina Lana. Right?
Yeah, I think my version of the world is we probably get Nina Lana and like another like dud general pool this month.
Yeah, they could give us Ukes early and then give us Cecily, right? And then just keep padding.
True. I think honestly, I think Cecily would be like a good bait unit for them. It's a unit people want.
Yeah,
it's a cute unit, but it's bait. Yeah. I think I really think that they're just going to keep putting like the bait characters or like the semi-value characters until MC with the track that they've been going, and then probably we'll have like a 3-week period after MC releases, and then I think we'll start seeing the MTs. I don't know if they'll be in the same order. Like I don't know if Richard will be the first one, but that's the timeline I see in my mind now.
Yeah, in my mind, if they don't talk about MTs in general, the first MT might not be Richard, right? It could be Iran. They could rearrange the order. But if they don't talk about MTs at all on this coming Tavern Talk on Monday, I think what Dream says would be, the best course of action for them. It's generally just the best idea, I think. That way people will actually want to pull on MCs.
Yeah.
Right.
And we saw with stuff like Nier too. Once they announced Nier, they were like, okay, we're going to give you guys Lars and then just nothing that's like going to steal your attention away from Nier until Nier. And then they gave us a break after Nier. They gave us a dud. And then they started releasing stuff again.
Yeah.
So I think that they know and they plan for like to try to gap between like stuff that they know we'll spend on. Especially because in NA, as opposed to JP, I think when JP releases a character, it's always a paid step up and then a free standard. Whereas in NA, if they project a character is not going to sell well, they just don't even make it a paid step up.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Europeans don't exist.
While we were talking about Cecily, right? She's like not the physical Cyrus you were hoping for. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know why, but I think that's the general description that's been passed around on Reddit and even on this server a little bit for the beginning of the game. We're like, oh, I think when we first started playing the game, for whatever reason, JP tier list also rated her very, very high. They actually rated like Cecily 0.1 higher than Cyrus, and those two were in like the SSS tier along with Alphen and Ophelia, I think, because when EN first started, I think that's around when JP first started getting MTs, or right before that, right? Or maybe right after that. I can't recall. Either way, like somehow for whatever reason, some of the older tier lists, they just for whatever reasons they just say, "Oh, Cecily's so good."
Well, I think it was like that thing we talked about earlier, where I think a lot of the people thought about the game in terms of having like a squad of a few units that can hit anything. Whereas once MT started coming out and like party buffs for damage up of a specific type started coming out, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to bring, like, even if this boss is weak to fan and I have PrimROse, I'm not going to bring PrimROse if I have Richard who's giving sword up. I'm going to bring 4 swords, right? Like,
yeah. It's not just that. It's just also debuffs, right? So like in terms of debuffs, a lot of the time you want to focus on either physical or elemental because some of the best debuffs are going to be focused on one side of the split. The other thing is res downs, right? You don't want to combine all these different kinds of res downs because you need to focus on not only active res downs, but you want your passive res down to also be in the same category, right? And that be your on break or your accessory res down. Some of them we're getting from the Force Fire Force, right? You can't be you can't be thinking, oh, I want fan res down, I want like axe res down, and I want also sword for this fight, and I also want academic up that's only gonna hit one unit. It's just like it's all confused, right? And none of those things are adding up. That's sort of why.
But I mean, that's how we've played the game up until now, realistically. Just when MTs come, it like really changes that thought process on building a comp.
Yeah, not only that, and that's also one of the reasons why Viola was so strong at the early part of the game, because we had split DPS across physical and elemental for a lot of the fights, because
because we just didn't have a lot of units in each category.
Our best DPS would be like, oh, let's combine wind and bow, let's combine light and dagger or something, whatever it is, right? We're no longer doing that even in EN right now.
It's why JP became Warriors of the Continent, because like you have to be so hyper focused, like your team comp, because like right now in the end get away with like a fist team comp and maybe an elite team comp, but mostly a fist team comp. Like you can combine spear, sword, dagger, whatever. But now with all the rest downs you have to juggle, there's really no reason to mix and match damage types. You just go in on one damage type and focus it that way, because that's the most intuitive and effective way to defeat enemies.
On this line of thought, without going into story spoilers or like being too specific, what are the upcoming fights that we actually need to plan for looking like? Because as far as I know, we're running out of level 100s. We are almost out of arenas. I think we just have Hammy. So what are the fights that we're like gearing up for actually looking like? Is it just EXs, like refights? Or are we getting like new systems?
There are actually 4 more level 100s. Well, sort of 4. Well, I would just say 4 more level 100 fights.
Okay, so we're getting more of those.
And those give 200 rubies as usual, which is great. I don't think. Well, I'm just the mechanic. Are you okay with mechanic spoilers or?
Yeah.
Just.
I mean, we spent all last episode doing that.
That's all we do on this show. We just spoil mechanics.
So those level 100 fights, call them fights because they're actually duels. So you fight 2 of them at the same time. So that immediately makes you think, oh, right, my random target skills are just gone.
Yeah.
On
top of those NPCs being the ones specifically that only have 2, and they're usually not shared.
They're never shared.
I don't think not any of them share weaknesses. The 4th one, we go back to a nice single target fight, but that one has its own problems.
Yeah. In addition, we're also getting Master Tower, which the higher floors will also have level 100 NPC pairings, on different floors. And this is Therion Gaming again. Just not just plugging that in. No no shade to other characters, but Therion can 4x AoE shield shave. You guys thought about that? And the paralysis too. In case you have trouble surviving, you might get a lucky immobilized proc and just win the fight from that.
If you're just trying to progress the main story, you generally be fine. I think BOA 1 is a sort of difficulty spike because like no one really expects that kind of shit in a story fight.
Okay. So we're getting an actual difficult one coming up. Okay.
Yeah, because like usually in story fights before BOA1, just roll in with a team that hits most weaknesses.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I just pick like 8 aesthetic characters and I'm going just rolling through.
Yeah. What Grape's saying is not that the fight is difficult. It's that if you expect it to be like a face roll with like, equipment from like three power creeps ago, and also just a random ass roster, you might get randomly rolled by a gimmick. But if you were to know about the fight, it wouldn't be like, some OP really hard fight or anything like that.
I mean, I like that idea.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm so OP right now that during the forced deaths of 2 of the recent chapters we had during the boss fights, my roster didn't die. Like so.
Yeah, if you build around it and actually gear up for it, you'll be fine. But like, don't expect to be able to go in with a rainbow team and then just face roll through it, because you're gonna get rolled.
Well, we'll see. I'm still gonna go in with a rainbow team, but my rainbow team has a lot of daggers.
No comment.
No comment.
All right, we'll see what happens. My plan in general for these story things is always just to like shield crack everything and just nuke with daggers, and it's been working so far.
All right.
Yeah, but like, I think level 100 content, like for most players, you shouldn't be aiming to clear them on release. It's just not very realistic unless you're really lucky with pools.
I mean, I think that's the way most people, besides like Chaz and MC, look at even our current level 100 stuff.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I actually sort of disagree. I think that most people can do the majority of level 100 NPCs on release. It's just going to be a little bit more of a challenge for the average player.
The majority.
A lot of the time,
I don't think the majority of. I think more people could beat like Yan Long on release without Nier than could beat Grandport, Soul for Talja, Burger King on release. I feel like those fights were significantly harder on release.
Oh, no, I agree. I'm not saying most people can. I'm just saying their rosters can. It's just much harder for them. They have to optimize a lot more.
Heavily roster dependent.
Yeah, it's very, very roster dependent. I'm just saying, like a lot of the time people do have the rosters for it. It's just that in order for them to clear it, they have to optimize quite a bit.
They have to optimize and they have to land every sleep.
Well, I mean, if like let's say for example for Burkane 100, MC and Chaz, they also landed 2 sleeps, right? So it's no different from mine. In my clear, I didn't use Odette and I also used 2 sleeps. Same RNG, right? And maybe not everyone has Odette, but the people who do have Odette and don't have Hasmi are fine. The people who have Hasmi and don't have Odette are fine, as long as they also have Ophelia, right? So I do think a lot of people end up having the rosters for some of these players. Like, let's say, for example, Grandport, right? Grandport was doable as long as you hit the DPS check and your tank could tank while everyone could shield shape, right? So if you have enough DPS and you could swap rows at the same time, you would be able to clear it, because as long as you're breaking fast enough, your bows and your fire units can do enough damage. It's just harder. Let's say, for example, you don't have MC's whale rosters, so you don't have the A3s, right? You'd have to do something more like the clears that Chaz and I did, where we just swap back and forth to avoid, double procking the counter.
Yeah, of course.
They're always. I feel like more and more so there are ways nowadays, because we just have so many mechanics on the player side, especially with the release of almost all the alts being available, as well as weapon creep being very, very significant. These are all things that.
So what you're saying is that everybody, you think more people have access to it than those people think, and that they're just shitters and they should get good.
Essentially, more or less, people can probably optimize a little bit better, and they will be able to do it.
No, I want you to own up to this. Are they shitters and should they get good?
Okay. At the same time, I will say that it is a lot easier to be a little bit lazier and wait for another weapon power creep and then just steamroll the boss. That's That's been the general strat that people have been doing for a while now. And if you view this endgame content not as, let me play on the hardest difficulty level of the game, which would be on release with the current weapon set, and more as in, oh, they give me 200 rubies, and I don't need these 200 rubies right now, then you don't have to worry about what I'm saying, and you can just do it later. I'm just saying, like, if you want the challenge, don't assume, do not assume that you cannot do the challenge. Try your best. Think about what you can possibly do, and this is a good challenge for you, and a good way for you to get better as a player is to push your boundaries and push your roster to the limit to try to eke out that win.
Wow, I really like that. That ended up being really wholesome.
I mean, what I'm trying to say with like the initial sentence of leave it for later is really you shouldn't be planning, because like you were asking about like gearing up for future content, right? And what I'm trying to say is you really shouldn't base your pools on any of these fights, because spending, you're at least doing a multi, so that's 300 rubies. Spending 300 rubies for like a character you're gonna use in 2 fights that grants you 200 rubies is quite stupid. I don't think you should like pay it too much attention. Like, if having this one specific character would allow you to, let's say, copy someone else's clear, you should still think about how useful that character is gonna be in the future, instead of just going for it because it allows you to clear some so-called high difficulty content.
Yeah, absolutely. You should just think, okay, what can I do with my roster right now? Don't think, oh, I need to pull for this extremely mid unit because this very mid unit is very OP for our current EN standards in this particular fight. Let me get that 200 rubies by spending, up to 2,400 rubies, right? That should not be part of your decision-making equation. What I am advocating for instead is just, think about what you can do, try your best, and if you realize, hey, it really is not possible, then you can wait. And typically, without pulling a new unit, just the gear power creep over time, over a very small period of time, mind you, in the span of weeks or even a month, will just push you over that edge, right? After you optimize, you realize, oh, I'm barely off. Now, with that gear power creep, you can just do it, and you'll feel really good about that.
Hey there, this is Dream from the future. We had one more topic planned for the end of this podcast that I thought we were going to be able to wrap up in a good 20 to 30 minutes. And instead, it became a whole nother 2-hour long segment. And so I'm just going to cut off this episode here. So we did not film an outro for the first part of this. So this is going to be the outro. I appreciate you listening. I'm sorry that this one was so delayed. I had strep throat for a while, and it took my throat a lot longer to recover than I thought it would. But I'm back now, and that's all that matters. So we have this episode you just listened to, and then I'll be editing the second half of this into episode 4, and that will release a little later this week. I once again want to thank my co-hosts Prim and Grape. Prim's channel is going to be linked below. Grape is not a content creator himself, but in the next episode, during his shout-out process, he asked basically that you guys comment below what you guys want to know more about in terms of topics. If we didn't explain something all the way or you have future questions about it, please ask them below. One of us will answer you down there, or we'll include it in a follow-up episode. And then, of course, from my side of things, if you liked the video, if you enjoyed this, if you want more of this, please subscribe. Please like the video. Comment below how you felt about it. All that good stuff. It makes my serotonin juices go high. And yeah, that's basically all I do this for. So definitely give me my little bone. I appreciate it. If you made it all the way here, remember to stay cute, stay safe. See you next time. Boo, yeah.